Welcome to the MBA50 video series here at the height of winter in London, and I'm delighted to welcome Karan Gupta, second year student at the London Business School. Karan, nice to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Can you describe a little bit of your background?
Certainly. I grew up in a small town in India for the first 15 years, shifted to Delhi, went to the US for college, and then I worked all over the world, and now I'm here doing an MBA.
Why Europe?
I'd been for 4 years in the US, so I'd already got a little bit of experience in the US. I wanted to broaden it by coming to Europe. And number two, over the last 10 years, I'd basically worked in this region, by which I mean the Middle East, Europe, and Africa. And it's a lot easier to stay connected to that if you're studying in London as opposed to New York or San Francisco or something like this.
Right. So second year student, you've already got 15 or 16 months under your belt. Perhaps from the original ideas, what's really struck you about the London Business School? Maybe 3 or 4 things that you've been impressed by?
Most schools, including when I was applying to the US, talk about how international they are. LBS is genuinely international. I mean, 90 separate nationalities. I think the maximum in a class of 400 is 40 people from one country, and that's the UK. So it's extremely international, more than I expected. Extremely competitive, which is again very good. They've done an extremely good job of making sure very high caliber people come here, so that makes you raise your game as well. And of course, it's the city of London, which is always great. So you have something to do apart from your MBA as well.
Right. In terms of the 400 students, all of those nationalities, how does the school create a sense of belonging as a community?
I think the school does an exceptional job in a few things. Number one is very early on, it's very clear that academics or recruiting is not the only aspect. A major third leg is clubs. Whether there's the poker club or the consulting club or the rugby club. So the school does, and all of these are completely student organized. I think that's a great forum to interact with people with shared interests, even if from different backgrounds. And the other major aspect as far as integration is concerned, I think, is the first year study groups. So the school seems to make a conscious effort to make it an extremely diverse study group. So in my study group, nobody was from the same country. And I think those two things go a long way in making sure that there's a lot of internal bonding.
Coming from India and your professional experience around the world, do you feel that what you're learning here is then applicable for the global economy? Could you go anywhere with your MBA?
I think we could go anywhere. And I think partly just the LBS brand helps as well. And I think what they teach in today's globalized world is extremely useful for operating anywhere in the world. And LBS, again, because it's more connected, London has a longer history of involvement with Africa and Asia and things like this. So there's a lot of focus on what's going on in the BRIC countries, in the developing world, in the emerging world as well. So I do think that it makes you ready to go anywhere in the world.
Was there ever a moment when you thought, gosh, what have I done? Why am I here?
Yes. I think most people go through it. For me, it was near the middle of the first year or the end of the first year when you first started applying for your summer internships, and your first set of no's or rejections or some, walk in, and you're like, did I just spend 2 years? Because I already had a great job, I was already working. Why am I doing this? So I think for me, there was a period of 2 or 3 weeks of, is this the right choice? Did I make the right choice? But in hindsight, I think it's an absolutely excellent choice. And I think everybody goes through that confusion for a couple of weeks during an MBA.
Do you have any advice from your experience of applying to the school that you could share with potential applicants?
Be honest. I think there's a lot of pressure when we're applying to sort of exaggerate and try to tell the school what they want to hear, which is really not practical, at least as far as the LBS is concerned. Definitely talk about what you've done. And for the most part, you've probably done a lot, and make it as rounded as possible. I think one of the beauties of LBS is that they're not only looking at academic or work experience. They're also genuinely interested in what you do around these two aspects of your personal life. So I think if you could sort of encompass that in the entire package, that'll certainly help.
Right. Now, you're the president of the poker club, so obviously you have a plan for financing the second year of your studies. But when looking at financing the MBA, what are the options?
LBS again does a good job. I am actually not getting it financed from outside right now, but LBS does a good job in setting you up and helping you up with HSBC. I can personally tell you LBS is also extremely kind when it comes to late tuition payments, as personal experience. And I think that there's also a lot of opportunity in the City of London to make a lot of money. One of the things that I've noticed is most second years, for example, are doing part-time jobs apart from their summer internships. So if finance is a major issue, I think that there are multiple avenues to reduce that pain, if not eliminate it, sir.
Looking ahead, obviously the alumni network is all over the world, and the 80 to over 100 nationalities. How do you think alumni and also career services will help you with your next career steps?
My current, I can speak for the experience that I've already had. During the summer, I did take the opportunity to go to our directly look up alumni. And for the most part, alumni of LBS are extremely helpful. They've been in your position before, and especially if they've graduated within the last 5 or 7 years, they remember very clearly all the stuff that they went through. So they've tended to be extremely, extremely helpful. It's not to the extent that anybody can, of course, offer you a job or get you a job just because you're from LBS, but they can give you a lot of tips. Do this, don't do this, give you a lot of information as to what the market is really looking for. So certainly extremely helpful.
Was there one class that left an unforgettable impression on you?
I'm currently actually doing managing corporate turnarounds. That's fairly specific because that's something I'm very, very interested in. And it's left a huge impression, because the professor who's teaching us, for example, is involved in helping in some aspect to resolve the Greek crisis. That's very, very cool to be having a professor teaching you about turnarounds of things like this. And the other is, of course, there's a lot of practical advice and practical takeaways that you can take as opposed to just plain theory. So managing corporate turnarounds for me has been an excellent course.
Great. Well, thank you for sharing your experience and insight. It was a pleasure to meet you today.
Thank you.